We're here in Houston, and we with Rick Ramos, attorney here at the city of Houston, and we have several issues we want to talk to you. First one is about the current immigration situation and how the fear of some of the immigrants are probably facing right now when they need to come to see an attorney that can help with an accident, personal injury, and some of the other issues that they face. How bad has it been for the city since the new mandate from the administration in terms of mass deportation has been to the community?
It's been very difficult and very hard on the community to be able to come forward if they've been injured in an accident, involved in an accident. Number one, 9 times out of 10, police has to be contacted to the scene of an accident, and that's the last thing they want is to be able to basically deal with law enforcement in any type of setting. So you already have non-reporting of accidents or leaving the scene of accidents. You also have issues where people don't want to come forward because you have to be involved in the court system. Anytime you're involved in the court system, you have to place somebody's name in a petition, which is a public filing. You have a judge involved. If you bring a client down to court, the judge has discretion to ask your immigration status. Not that they will or won't, but they have a right to. And if you say, well, I'm here illegally or I'm not a citizen, you have just committed a crime in front of that judge, which means essentially you can be held. Not in contempt, but you can just be held in prison because they have to go ahead and enforce it and deport. So that's the fear that goes on. And it stretches even to landlord-tenant disputes. As an example, when the community was free maybe to go down and see the justice of the peace, your local JP on a rent issue maybe that you have with the landlord, they're reluctant to do that now. You show up, again, you have a judge, law enforcement is there. So it's been really tough.
Some things that people don't understand, especially immigrants, is that the minute that you cross the border, you come into the U.S. An illegal, what they call a non-formal way, illegally, in other words,
Illegally.
they already committed a crime.
Yes.
And the thought of like the past administration was like, okay, people felt comfortable just by crossing. They had the CBP-1 up and all that. The game has changed. Obviously, that struck people's the immigrant community really hard. But the position of the White House has been, we face 20 million people that came in 4 years, and the courts are asking us to revise every case on a case-by-case basis. It's going to take about 400 years. So a lot of that is being placed on the hands of Tom Homan and the Secretary of DHS to try to get comply with the mandate of the President of mass deportation. The fears is one thing, but there's also a national security issue behind that. Can you talk a little bit about in that aspect that is basically the main point that the administration is trying to make?
The valid point, and the issue is we were essentially, we are a country without a border. That's essentially what we were, okay? So that means that we had an open border, and that was abused now for a good 6, 7, 8 years, which is a massive floodgate of human beings coming across our border illegally. What I mean by that is there were no checkpoints. They never availed themselves to any type of law enforcement or any registry or anything else for that matter. So what happens now, we have become flooded with individuals that we don't know who they are. We don't know what their intent is when they cross the border and come into the United States. And we have so many of them within our own borders now that how do we know who's the good guy versus the bad guy? Because they're all in here. So the only way essentially that you can reestablish, like I say, our borders and protect the United States is you're going to have to then deport essentially or get rid of all these individuals that came in here illegally. So then you can reset essentially your boundary line, which is your border, with your checkpoints or however safe you want to make your points of entry. I mean, Israel does it where you have to drive in a long road and then you have to do your guard stops as you go in. It's going to be probably very similar down in the border, but that means that you have control over your border of who's coming in and then who's coming out. And we did not have that. As a matter of fact, we had the complete opposite. It was open season, basically running into an open field and God, look, I hit the soil, so I'm in the United States, and then go on from there into the country. So the only way that we can gain security back is to really go through a mass deportation process. And it's unfortunate because, sometimes good people are going to get deported. And that's the sad part of it, but we're here for a reason. I mean, it happened because of an abusive immigration policy that was a complete failure to our national security that got us here. And now we have to go ahead and clean it up.
We here in the city of Houston, and a lot has changed because Houston, I don't know if it's still, but it used to be a sanctuary city. And we have a new mayor and a DA. Can you talk to us about how has that come about? What changes have been made to make the city of Houston a better place?
The changes have been, they have been pretty, I want to say, not severe, but they've been to the other extreme in a good way. Okay, basically we were a lawless city, like I like to say, for many, many years. And you saw that in our crime rate. I mean, we were running a crime rate similar to that in Chicago a couple years back. I mean, capital murder of the world, basically. And we're like running, we want to take that title, right? We wanted to be number one, I guess. But that's how bad it was in the city. And essentially what happens now is with the new administration, that was the old administration. Under the new administration, what you have is you have good policies. You have the mayor essentially is enforcing our state law, which is our state law essentially is there will be no sanctuary cities within the great state of Texas, and a mandate to local law enforcement and to local officials to follow the state law and not do an executive order of sanctuary cities or, pick up and drop off an illegal person that you have arrested, that they're here illegally, and now you're just going to drive them to a different side of town.
The famous catch and release.
Right, the catch and release program, right? Which essentially now you're using resources, personnel that could be doing something else in order to go ahead and de-enforce the laws of the state of Texas and the United States. So now the administration, the mayor, has not issued an executive order declaring our city a sanctuary city. We are not a sanctuary city. We're a city that's following essentially the law as has been handed down by the Texas legislature and approved by the governor, which basically says we are going to enforce immigration issues, meaning if you're here illegally and you are pulled over by law enforcement and they find out you are here illegally, you will be deported, you will be detained in accordance to the law, and they're following the rule of law. And the district attorney's office, again, they are following the rule of law in the same manner, which is if you're here illegally, you're going off into the ICE department, for lack of a better word, you'll be bussed essentially somewhere, but you will be intercepted through the process of law enforcement from the mayor's office, who's been very involved, and from the DA, who has taken it to task to just follow the rule of law the way it's supposed to be handed down. And it was not, that's not the way the city ran for many, many years, I can tell you that.
I have one more question, and it has to deal with the governor. The governor had a huge battle in the last administration with the former president and their policies. Obviously, right now is a change in the White House, is a new president who's actually, his entire national security issue has been the border. How have you seen that relationship change between the governor of Texas and the White House when it comes to secure the border?
Oh my God! I mean, it's night and day. I mean, the biggest fight. I don't know if anybody remembers, but when we had our National Guard, down at the border, and the biggest fight was that we had them enforcing our laws in the state of Texas, and there was a fight between our National Guard or our state law enforcement with federal law enforcement that would come down and essentially would want the Texas National Guard and in the Texas law enforcement officers not to perform their duties and their responsibilities pursuant to the law, which was to be able to intercept, arrest, and detain illegal immigrants that are coming onto our country illegally. And they have federal government forces, nothing more than, these are Army individuals, right, at the national level, coming down to impede the state of Texas from enforcing its own laws, from protecting its own citizens. So that was a huge fight because it really put us Texans in harm's way. And the federal government was almost following that policy of really trying to hurt the state and not protect our citizens. And I think that was a big fight with the governor and the previous administration that was, it made it really difficult for him to do his job, which is sad, really.
Thanks, Ricky. Ricky
welcome.
Ramos, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.